Hello everybody and welcome back to the Saturday morning review thing, also known as SMRT. This is the show where we give you movie reviews while we play video games. I'm your host, TurboStew, and joining me today is...
FenHotsause!
FenHotsause! Alright. And I just realized I'm going to double check. Okay, cool. So we are recording audio as well. Alright. So, today we are going to be playing Spider-Man while reviewing the movie Glass. Gonna kind of start out by, because this is a sequel to both the movie Unbreakable and the movie Split, so I'm gonna first start by giving a brief, a quick review of what you thought of those two movies.
Split was good. I like Split. It was interesting. I liked the concept. It was done relatively well. Unbreakable, I didn't like at all. I don't get why everyone loves it.
Oh, really? You weren't a fan of it?
It's like he saw one scene in a movie where like they were having a deep, heartfelt moment, and he's just like, "What if that's the entire movie?" No, we don't need to build up to it or anything. We'll just start off with that, end with that, middle is that, and like the part that like most encompasses this to me. Do you remember when he gave the guy the pat down in the football stadium?
Yeah.
That scene, it's just so dumb. He gets the vision from the guy that he's got coke, and he's just like, "Sir, can I pat you down? I just got here, man. Just spread your arms, please." Oh, I didn't find it. And then the guy he patted down, "I hope you find what you're looking for." Who talks like that? And that's like the entire movie is stuff like that, and I don't
think the whole movie's like that. I do agree that one scene was odd, and it was just Shyamalan being like, "I need a cameo in my own movie. I need to show the world I can act." The only thing I thought was weird about it, or actually there were two things. For one, it's like he pulls off the one Indian guy there, so I'm surprised the guy wasn't like, "Okay, this feels a little racist."
Better race that could have done it. Like,
could have been like, "That's a bit racist."
I kind of get why that scene needed to be there. It's him testing his abilities. You can do that and still do it naturally. We don't need that weird moment. It could just be like, "Sir, I'm gonna need to pat you down. I just got here, man. What are you doing?" I just need to pat you down. Random. It's a random search. Just, and then could just be to himself like, "Dang, I didn't find it." And then the guy could be like, "God, these security man," and just walk off like it.
Yeah, which is like something I'm kind of surprised didn't happen in that scene. But
if it went like that, that would have been fine. That's kind of natural. I get why that in general needs to be there. The way they did it was so stupid.
But I really like the other scene where it was like he was right about the first guy with the camouflage jacket, which and what was kind of funny about it is and this actually gets kind of brought up in the movie Glass, is that it was kind of you could say there was something supernatural to him figuring out the exact guy having the exact gun that he described, but he himself kind of says, "Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people that dress like that, carry weapons, and I just named the most common type of gun, so it was probably just a huge coincidence." And it's like,
I would also like to note it wasn't in his pants; it was in his belt.
Okay, fair point. So he wasn't 100%
wrong.
Exactly, he wasn't 100% right. But yeah, no, I actually really like. I'd say that Unbreakable is probably my favorite out of the trilogy.
It's my least favorite out of the trilogy. It's only not my least favorite Shyamalan movie because of The Last Airbender.
Last Airbender I hate on a personal note. I think his worst movie, because of just how fucking dumb it is Lady in the Water. God damn.
I haven't seen that, but I don't entirely want to.
But seen reviews of it. You've seen Split, and you said you liked that movie, right?
Split was good. They did a lot of stuff I liked in that one.
Yeah,
I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It's just it was a fun movie. Watch it. It was well done.
Oh yeah, and I think one thing about Split is
and the positive, you don't need to watch Unbreakable to watch Split. There's there's one thing that I won't say too much about. There's one exact thing that is not entirely important either. So
God, I actually really liked the twist ending in Split. You know, when they kind of got connected, it's like, oh shit, no way.
Way to give it away after I said I'm not gonna say.
Well, it's kind of obvious when you look at the fact that Unbreakable is a thing. But yeah, also we'll do the review of, unlike with Brawly, we'll do our review of Glass without any big spoilers. We'll just kind of give away the plot, like the basic plot, you know, that we've already seen in the trailers, but we're not going to like give any like plot details that are important. So you don't have to worry about that or anything. But yeah, so before we actually get into this, I do want to say that I'm going to sound kind of negative at first, but I also kind of want it to be known currently that I actually really liked this movie, but it also had quite a bit of problems. But you know, those of you who also really liked it and are curious to see, and want to hear you know, what I liked about it the most, you do have to wait till the end of this review, because I'm going to get into that part last. But for now, I'm going to probably shit on this movie a little more than actually praise it. But
I didn't like the movie overall. I'm willing to watch it again. It's definitely not the worst movie I've ever seen. It was all right.
Yeah. So getting into this, It was a movie I think I was really excited about, but I was also kind of prepared for disappointment, because, you know, this is the same guy that brought us The Last Airbender and The Village, and After Earth and The Visit, and
is The Village the Bees one with Nicolas Cage?
No, that's what's that movie called? Wicker Man, yeah.
Okay,
no, The Village.
I love that the Bees scene isn't even in the original movie.
The Village was just like everyone has all these random complaints about it, and mostly the most common complaint is that the twist was so obvious. My biggest complaint about it is that it's so boring. That's it. Like, it's just boring. The twist itself, I'm gonna say this, and it might have been because someone already told me the twist and I don't remember. I could have sworn watching The Village that the twist had already been explained in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I was told the twist, and when I was first told the twist, I haven't seen the movie, but my response was, isn't that the point of the movie? Like, I always thought that was the entire point.
Me too, watching it. Like, I didn't know that was supposed to be the twist. I thought, wait, this is something I knew going into the movie. And maybe, like I said, it might have been because someone had spoiled it for me, but I swear I remember it being brought up in the beginning of the movie that, that takes place in modern times, spoiler, whatever. This isn't about the village or anything, but yeah,
I hadn't even seen it, and I assumed that was like the base concept, not the twist.
Yeah. So yeah, getting into this. So yeah, I didn't have the biggest expectations, but you know, I really loved Unbreakable, and I liked Split a lot. So I was hoping that this would at least be good. Like, it didn't have to be amazing, but I just wanted it to be good, and it was. So I can't say I was disappointed. I can say that the movie definitely felt kind of empty at the end, but I feel like it was also done like that intentionally. He kind of...
I'm sure he would claim it was.
Yeah, like, it definitely felt like, because, you know, they hint at something really big that we never actually get to, which... kind of I expected, given the budget of this movie. I didn't expect it to do anything like that massive, but it was almost like because of how much they were hyping it up and it not happening, you're kind of like, yeah, I feel like the director really like purposely wanted it to be kind of a disappointment, but not in like a screw you kind of way, more of in a see, you know, or I'll get to why. Actually,
Shyamalan would say you just don't understand.
Probably. No, I'll actually get to why I think he ended it the way he did in a moment, without actually telling you what the ending is. Focus heal. All right. So, going into the movie itself, and I just realized I'm saying way too much. I had that problem when we were doing the podcast after work with Alex. I was saying way too much. I'll try to work on that, everyone. I promise.
That just takes practice.
Yeah. It does. So Bruce Willis's performance was probably the most disappointing out of all of them. I like that they got him back, and you know, I don't think I would have done it any other way. But you could kind of tell he was just phoning this one in. He was contractually obligated to.
The only person that seemed like they were really trying was James McAvoy.
James McAvoy, yeah.
He did a really good job. Good on him.
Oh, yeah, James McAvoy was great. I didn't think he was as good, though, as he was in Split. Because in Split, he plays way less characters. And because of that, he gives so much depth to each one of them. Like, each one of the characters that he plays almost felt like you could have made a whole movie about him playing that character. But then we get to this, and each character he plays, it feels like they're so excited with how many characters he can play that they're more interested in quantity over quality of how he acts as each one of them.
On top of that, they're rapidly switching between them.
Yeah, which was another kind of disappointing thing.
Yeah, it did feel more like they just wanted to show off the personalities in James McAvoy, which ultimately just kind of ran down the whole thing.
Yeah. I'll also say this. So I know that some of the biggest complaints about it are that this is not a good representation of what multi-personality disorder is actually like, which I actually know nothing about it, so I can't really... In the first movie, I couldn't tell you how accurate it was. But in this movie, it's so cartoonishly over the top that it's like, yeah, I can definitely tell you this is not quite how it works, even knowing nothing about it. My
main question is, how realistic would it be, assuming we found someone who did have 24?
That's a good point.
And that's like, I'm also not claiming that, hey, if someone was 24 was found, it'd definitely be him. Like, I'm not remotely an expert on this. It's just like, we don't really have a whole lot of case studies for this, as far as I'm aware. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, even having one alternate personality is incredibly rare.
Yeah. I mean, like, I obviously don't know anyone with it. But, so, yeah, his performance wasn't bad in this movie at all. It was still really good, and you could tell he was giving it his all. But it definitely wasn't as good as it was in Split, whereas in Split, because he was playing only a few of them altogether, he gave each one just a perfect characteristic. And I think my favorite definitely goes to... What's the kid's name again? Hedwig, yeah. That was, without a doubt, the most humorous.
I liked him a lot better in Split.
But, yeah, I liked him better in Split, though, because this is where I was actually going to go next, is there's way too much of him in this, and I thought he was so perfect in small doses like he was in Split, and that's what made him my favorite. But when you have so much of him, then it feels more of an imitation, less of an actual him actually acting, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I liked the one that didn't like being touched and hated dirty clothes. I forget what his name is.
Yeah, and he was kind of in it, but he didn't do much. You didn't
That's oddly one of the reasons he was my favorite one in this movie. I mean, I always liked him. I liked him in the other movie, but in this one I liked him the most out of it, probably just because it gave me a break from everything else.
Yeah. The only one where I feel like he could have actually played an entire movie as this character was whenever he played Patricia.
She would have made that would have been a good character.
Yeah, exactly. Then Samuel Jackson, I don't think
was just not allowed to act.
Yeah, we don't get to see much of his actual acting until the last third, and I'll give it to him.
Paycheck for him. So.
I'll give it to him. Like, when he did his acting, it was over the top and cartoonish, but it was at least, it was a lot of fun, I have to say.
Yeah, I actually liked him in Unbreakable more.
Yeah. He felt way more grounded and Unbreakable. Here, it was like straight up, he almost was essentially the comic book villain that he says don't actually exist in real life. That are like it. Basically, there's this whole point in both Unbreakable and in Glass where comic book heroes are supposed to be based on, actual extraordinary people in real life, but they're over exaggerated.
He always clarifies to people like, this isn't a cartoon, there are limits, but
then he acts very cartoonish in this film. At least in Unbreakable, he was a lot more grounded and felt more contained. You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess in Unbreakable, you weren't supposed to know he was the villain.
Yeah, that's
in this one, he was very obviously the villain.
Yeah, this one we already know he's the villain.
So I guess they were trying to play off that, but yeah. I liked it better when we weren't supposed to know.
And you could also say that because he's trying to pretend that he's heavily sedated, so him being like trying to act that way for a while would probably drive someone insane and make him more over the top. So I guess in that sense, it kind of makes sense.
He has been in there for like 19 years.
Yeah, 19 years.
Whenever Unbreakable happened.
Yeah, which I think was 2000, so 19 years.
They mentioned 19 years. I forget if that's exactly when the train was or what happened, but yeah, that was when the train crashed, so it wouldn't be 19 years, but
yeah,
somewhere around there, maybe 15 years.
Yeah, so he was in there for a long time. Well, actually, Unbreakable didn't take place over the span of any, like, that long, so it probably would have been 19 years, because it's still, yeah, that would make sense. So 19 years, probably. So it kind of makes sense that he would go a little more crazy, I think. Yeah, so...
Although that was... Why did she only have 3 days to work with Kevin and Bruce Willis's character, but apparently 19 years to work with Mr. Glass?
She wasn't working on Mr. Glass for 19 years. He was institutionalized before she came in.
Yeah, but wasn't that the institution?
Yeah, she took over it though, like only recently, and she didn't take over because she didn't really need to, because he had been heavily, as far as they knew, heavily sedated and wasn't really much of a threat.
Why was she given only 3 days in a general?
Well, I mean, I'll get to... it's hard to get to that.
Even looking at the end, it doesn't make sense to me that she only has 3 days. This seems like something, regardless, that would take a while.
It makes sense to me. It's hard to get into why, though, without getting into spoilers. So, actually, let's just give our final thoughts on overall, like, with the movie, and then we'll get to the spoiler talk, I think. And
overall, there's a lot of stuff just seemed to be out of convenience rather than that's actually what should be in it.
Yeah.
And that comes down to a lot of stuff like the scene where all 3 of them are in the room. Why did they all 3 need to be in the room? Why is Mr. Glass even there? He's sedated to the point that he can't even respond to anything, but they're like there to ask them questions and see if they're sane.
Yeah. A lot of things that happen in this movie happen because it looks cool for the plot and not because it actually makes sense. Which I, to a degree, I can accept that to a degree, but when it's so many things going on at once, then that's when it kind of becomes a problem.
In that same scene, if they don't believe Bruce Willis has superpowers, why is he chained to a metal block?
Instead of just handcuffed.
Like, the whole point is, you don't have superpowers, so just to be clear, you don't have them. But we're going to put a big heavy chain right here, and you're sitting on this big metal plate, so you can't leave.
Yeah.
Everyone else is just sitting here, but you're chained up because you have super strength, which you don't.
It was also, like, the whole thing with, like, them putting water in his room, even though, like, yeah, if supposedly it is all mental, then that
one I can get, because it is still, even, they're telling him it's mental, which even then it works as a way to seduce it. That's the wrong word. I was trying to say sedate, but that was the wrong word, so I just went to something that sounded similar.
I mean, is there a difference? Bad joke.
I love it with the pudding pops. But, like, yeah, like, it makes sense because it would take him down.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a mental thing, it'll take him down. So I can kind of get that one.
All right. But yeah, I'd say for me, there are definitely a lot of problems with the film. There's a lot of things happening, even though they don't make much sense, but it's more entertaining that way, so they choose to play it off this way, which I can accept to an extent. Like, usually when it comes to the whole, like, why didn't they go to the cops? Well, they didn't go to the cops because it wouldn't be interesting. I can accept that. There's a few too many of those in this film, however. So it becomes a lot harder to accept when it's all happening at once, if that makes sense. So basically,
I find it a little hard to believe that they knew so much about both of them, but they didn't know where to find them.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Kevin was just good at hiding, but Bruce Willis's character definitely was not hiding.
That does get explained at the end, actually. Let's get into spoilers now. So, of course, at the end, if you have seen this movie, and because I want to talk about what I liked about it, I guess this completely contradicts what I said at the beginning when I said I'm going to explain what I liked about the ending without going to spoilers over it. I guess I completely lied and I'm full of shit now. So, yeah, I'm just pointing that out now.
Don't worry, no spoilers. By the way, we lied. Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. At least we're warning you. So, what I liked about the ending, and
well, actually, before spoilers, in case you're still listening, my final review. If you've seen both Unbreakable and Split, I go ahead if you really care, but even then, don't bother watching Unbreakable to watch it. Just don't watch it. Split, watch regardless.
Oh, I would say just watch Unbreakable even if you have no interest in watching Glass. Unbreakable is... I don't know what this fool's talking about. Unbreakable's amazing. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. At least I really enjoyed Unbreakable. Loved Split. I think this would be my least favorite out of them. Unbreakable being my favorite, Split being my second favorite, this being my least. But I still thought it was okay. I just thought it was weird with how much this movie would talk about itself like it's a grounded superhero movie, like superheroes in the real world. But then the ending takes such a cartoonish twist. And then plus with Mr. Glass, that it makes it like, okay, I could believe it before with you talking about how this is in Unbreakable and in Split, I could believe this existing in the real world. But then when you get into this movie, it's so much harder to actually like consider this like grounded in reality. So, and I think that's the film's biggest problem, is that it's not as grounded, it's not as serious as it likes to take itself. So, and as we'll get into spoilers, not as good as M. Night Shyamalan liked to think that it was.
None of what he makes is as good as he thinks it is.
Oh yeah, no. Even as
not even the actually good movies are as good as he thinks they are.
All right, so now
on to actual spoilers.
Yeah, so basically the ending, it's revealed that there are people who try to keep superheroes from...
You have to swing those turrets out.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, for some reason it wasn't letting me hit L1 and R1 at the same time. There we go. Now it is. Come on, and boom. Once again, if you're listening to us on SoundCloud and not on YouTube,
then what are you doing?
Then you're going to be very confused on what we're talking about here. We're currently playing Spider-Man while reviewing this movie, hence, what I mentioned at the beginning. Okay, so yeah, it's revealed that this big organization has been trying to keep superheroes secret for like 10,000 years, which is where I'm like, okay, that's really silly. So... But it leads to what I kind of love and hate about this movie at the same time, and why I think I'm going to appreciate this movie more than most people. So, there's a line in this movie that's clearly M. Night Shyamalan sucking his own dick, where basically Samuel L. Jackson is super proud of what he's done by introducing the world to superheroes. And he's like, they called me crazy. It took me 19 years, but I finally brought superheroes to the real world. So we also get to the organization itself that's been trying to keep people from revealing themselves. So I feel like there's a bigger hidden message in this, and that's where I'm going to get into why I like this movie. Whether or not this message was intentional or not, it's what I appreciated about the film. So we live in a world where, and not saying this is bad, like if you know anything about me, you know that I love Marvel films, and I loved some DC films, like I love The Dark Knight and Wonder Woman. But recently, those are like the only superhero movies out there. It's just Marvel or DC, and they always have like these big budgets. But what I like about this film is it shows how you can do superheroes in a lower budget film. And I think whenever they refer to like the real world, what it almost feels like they're saying is like, this is what, whenever they're referring to it being like a grounded superhero film, they're more referring it to being a low budget superhero film and trying to show other filmmakers that just because you're not DC or Marvel or you're not a huge studio, that doesn't mean you can't make these really unique takes on superheroes. You don't need necessarily a huge budget to tell a good superhero story. And that was the message I kind of took from it. You have the organization which is trying to keep them in line because, already the movie industry is already saturated with superhero films. So you could say that the industry the organization trying to shut everyone up is like Marvel and DC trying to make sure they're the only ones who are doing these kind of films. And it's interesting though, because I think that I would love you've had a couple that aren't your traditional superhero films. Like you had Defender and you had
Hancock.
Huh? Hancock? Oh yeah, Hancock too.
That one I like, just looking at how a superhero would probably work in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. And then you also have Super. You have Kick-Ass, which tried to do that, but then ended up like kind of ruining its own thing by having actual superheroes in that movie, which was kind of what made it weird. But yeah, I think like at the end, what M. Night Shyamalan was trying to get at is you shouldn't let limitations and budget like stop you from making the kind of film that you want to do. So I really liked that message at the end. And I think this is where the problem with the way he told the message was. He was almost like saying, this is how awesome I am. I've proven to the world that you can do something like this. And then he basically kind of writes this film thinking that it was a masterpiece, that it's like Oscar worthy, which it's not. It's a fun, entertaining film, but it's definitely not like, Oscar worthy like he wrote it to be.
It's not winning any awards.
Yeah, no, definitely
not. It's not even bad enough to win a Razzie.
No, it's not. Yeah, and that's like the big thing. It's
winning nothing.
So I think, the biggest problem I have with the way he was telling this message is that he was way too egotistical about it. But at the same time,
Shyamalan do.
Oh yeah, exactly. But like as I was saying, the thing I do agree though with what it was trying to say. If this is, I could also be completely misinterpreting this. I just want to point that out. This may not have actually been the intended message in the film, but it's what I took from it. And ultimately, in the end, films are more about what you take from it. They are a lot less about what the actual message was meant to be. So, as someone who's wanting to be a filmmaker, it inspires me, I think, to think of, hey, go ahead and write it the way you want to. You'll have your limitations, like Samuel Jackson's character mentions, this is the real world. We can't like fly or shoot lasers out of our eyes, and that's kind of similar to how it is in film. Like, you can't have your movies have this giant epic battle in New York when you only got like a $3 or $4 million budget, but you can still make a good film. You can still tell an engaging story. And, whether or not that was the intended message in the film, that's what I took from it.
That is an important thing, not just in movies, but in art in general. Don't necessarily plan for what you can do. Just plan for what you want to do, and then try and figure out ways around it later.
Exactly.
You'll end up with a much better product in the end, even if you can't do what you originally planned.
I fully agree. So, yeah.
Movies especially, you can get a lot. There's been a lot of really great, clever ideas that you can do with a small budget. Horror tends to be really one that people have realized they don't need a large budget for, but it can really come down to anything. Like, action movies, they did, I can't remember what it was called, but they just filmed it in one single room. And it was just them firing guns at each other.
Oh, I know exactly which movie you're talking about, and I don't remember the name of that either. There was
one with a similar concept that I do remember the name of, Circle. They did a good job with that. It's just one black room with a red orb in the middle. That's the entire set for the entire movie. And they do a really good job with it. The actors aren't even allowed to move.
At that point, it's like you gotta really have a lot of confidence in your writing to pull off movies like those.
And
like,
it's great, 'cause in that one, it's everyone's like, there's a whole thing, but the very too long didn't read of it is people are being killed, and they're kind of voting on who has to be killed. And the entire movie ends up just being kind of a look at the sociology of it all, and how people are reacting to, we have the power, but I still might be the one on the short end of the stick. How am I going to get through this? And it ultimately was really good. Watch Circle.
Watch Circle.
I think it's still on Netflix. Go ahead and watch that one. That's a good one.
Not to be confused with The Circle. That movie sucked.
Very different from The Circle.
Very, very different. The Circle sucked. That movie was so dumb.
If they move out of the room, you have the wrong movie.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I think, so out of 10, what would you give this?
Glass... I don't know. Like, the more I think about it, the more my score is lowering.
That's fair enough.
I gotta go with 4.
4 out of 10? Yeah. I wouldn't go that low. Because, like I said, I thought it was
5.
I thought it was entertaining, and which is why I would still recommend it to people. I just didn't think it was very well written. But I'd give it...
I really want someone else to do the movie. I did love the concept in the world, but...
It's someone else, someone talented did it.
Competent to do it.
It actually kind of brings up a good point. Like, probably the biggest problem this film had is when Split was written, it was written back when M. Night Shyamalan was really good at writing films. So that was one advantage he had with it. But this movie was written recently. so it's kind of, you have the new M. Night Shyamalan, relying on what he did back in the day that was actually pretty brilliant. And it just didn't mix together as well as you kind of wish it would. And, but yeah, I think it could have been better. And part of the problem could have also been it being rushed, because this came out a year after Split, right? Didn't Split come out last year?
Did it?
Either last year or the year before. So I'm wondering if he was in such a hurry to finish off the trilogy, so that...
I mean, that's his own fault.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Unless it comes out that someone was rushing him on something, that's his own fault.
It is. I'm not denying that. Like you said, it probably would have been better if someone else had written it, or better yet, if someone else had... if it was his script, but there was someone else doing a rewriting of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
We need to give him the original George Lucas treatment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're the head guy, but don't do that. No, not that either.
Exactly. Have someone else direct it, and then they can rewrite it as things go along.
He's the head, but he's got a lot of people going around telling him what to not do.
But yeah, I think my rating overall would be a 6.5 out of 10. Not a great movie, but I still would recommend people watch it. But unless, if you've seen both Unbreakable and Split and you didn't like either of them, you're not going to like this movie. Straight up. And if you've only seen Unbreakable, but you haven't seen Split, and you're hoping this would be a perfect successor to Unbreakable, it's not, honestly. In fact, I'd even say that even though it's a sequel to both movies, it's almost written to be very much in this, as its own film, because it doesn't ever feel like you're watching a real continuation of the characters from the other movies. You feel like you're just being introduced to them for the first time in this movie, which is why...
I honestly don't think they did a good enough of a job with that. It was a decent job, but I don't know. I feel like without the other ones, I would have felt that there were pieces missing.
Yeah.
But, I'd be able to follow it fine, but I would feel like there was something wrong.
Yeah, I can see that too. Then again, I also haven't... I've also seen both of them, so it's hard to say for sure. I kind of wish I haven't now, because now I'm curious what this movie would be like if you haven't seen either Split or Unbreakable. Okay, if you guys have seen this movie and you haven't seen Split or Unbreakable, please let us know in the comments what you thought of the film, because now I'm curious. And yeah, I think that kind of wraps up our thoughts. Yeah, anything else to say for you?
I don't really think so.
Yeah.
And we've got to the boring to watch part of Spider-Man.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, this has been the Saturday morning review thing. Thank you all for watching, and remember to stay smart.